What is going on, everybody? Thank you for tuning in with me and none other than the Will over at Flawless Exotic Creations.
That's right. Only
Today
half
we
of
are
it.
coming to you again with another new guy, veteran video, whatever. We're still working on the name and everything like that
Right.
for going forward.
Right. The name isn't important as much as the content and the topics
Content.
we can be talking about. And then this one is very important and very interesting because we get a lot of questions being the newer person. And it's kind of interesting because um we don't take that lightly. A lot of people see us as, let me say they look up to us and see us as, getting in and doing it in a major way and seeing us as a veteran in the game. And we don't see ourselves that way at all. We're still like a
Absolutely.
sponge. So I still ask you questions. We throw questions back and forth.
Look,
So
bro, I'm one of those people. I thought you had years. I was like,
yeah,
oh, okay, he's done some stuff, and then I
absolutely.
found out how long, and I was like, what am I
Yeah.
doing wrong?
It's crazy. It's crazy, and again, not to kind of just be name dropping, but shout out to like Miguel over at Always Evolving because we're nowhere near what he has in his collection and the things he's built over the years, but he has more time vested in this industry than we have. But at the same point, oftentimes he was, I guess hated on because of his approach and the way he did different things, but different people are different.
Yeah, I
Um,
remember that in the beginning when
we're
you were.
we're super humble, like down to earth people. We stay out the way, answer any questions or help anyone out there that we can try to help. But we want to continue to educate ourselves in this game. So
Thousand
this
percent.
one I'm gonna be the host of this one, since we're on the Morphed Out Reptiles, channel. And I think this is gonna be cool because you guys, as the viewers, are gonna get two different perspectives. This is gonna be more so, Will leading kind of questions, maybe down bad pathways, maybe good, but picking Tim's brain on his thought process here in the 2025 season after he's had over a decade in. And we want to fine tune it, kind of dumb it down for us, and make it small and concise and hold you guys, maybe 10, 15 minutes max, and then do another one, part two, and flip the roles a little bit. So the topic of the day is going to be what's the difference between what's a purchase versus what's a project? Um, and again, we can go so many different ways on it, but we're going to
There's
keep it
so much.
really, really small and concise. But generically speaking, let me ask you the easier of the breeder questions. What would you give your best concise explanation on what a project is in the ball python world?
Um, honestly, and again, I've learned so many different things in the years. And that's the
Mhm.
really important part because, 10 years ago, my answer would have been completely different. But a project, what I believe, the explanation of that would be something that, off break, when we think of a project, I'm not even in the thought process of any return on that 5 to 8 years minimum.
Mhm.
Only because a project we're starting at one spot, but our main goal is nowhere near that. And I think projects, it has to be a well established group of animals, the smart genetics wise, because most of the time you would think of a project as a goal. So a goal animal, okay, well, we need to put a project together to get to that. So that's what I would say. I would say, a decent group of animals. Nowadays I would think a project, for me, I would be comfortable with probably a 3 to 8.
Okay.
I feel that is a very strong project pending the genetics or whatever the project consists of, but I think a 3 to 8 ratio would be definitely a good start.
Okay. Okay. Now that makes sense. Now, what would you deem as just being a purchase, and where does that necessarily fit in even your situation?
So most of the time, I will say I'm the perfect person for this question because of past experiences.
Right.
But I will say a purchase, honestly, it with our mindset now, a purchase doesn't fit because everything is focused projects. Everything has to have a reason. But I think a purchase, you know, subject is one of those animals that you're at a show or you're online browsing and you're like, man, the pattern is beautiful. The colors are beautiful. Everything about this, I need to have that. But then you have to also think about that other side. Like, if I need this, where am I using it? See, but that moves into the project base.
Right.
And I feel so that's what I would consider a purchase. I don't need it, but it looks great. I can't let it pass up, type deal.
So I guess that brings into a bigger question though. How do you know that you don't need what you don't have?
You don't. I mean, the
Right.
hardest, and look, I will be the first person to say this, especially in the ball pythons. And I know this is, happens all over the other industries that we have and other categories, but with ball pythons, we don't ever know what we need until we see something else that, somebody else has hit.
Right.
I mean, your vision is definitely a good starting point. Like us, we have certain projects to where my goal was to make a super super dark snake but have like the pattern bright oranges. Again,
Okay.
that revolves into a project that you could shoot towards, but at the same time, we still learn so much that year by year, month by month, every breeder, they have different hatching seasons, so when they have something new, boom, okay, now we know, special, for example, special vibrant, it makes vibrant oranges. It goes really well with those type of stuff, where we were just thinking, orange dream, super orange dream, that kind of realm.
Right.
So knowing what, can you know what you need and what you don't need? You can definitely know what you don't need. That's the easy part. um Falls back into whether it's purchase or project, but finding that, that thing that, do I need this? That's tough, man. I mean, and even me still to this day, 12, 13 years in, there's a few genes that I was like, I don't really need that. And then later on in the project, I found out, yeah, I kind of hurt myself because I definitely needed to have that into what we were doing.
Right. So you kind of give an answer where it's like yes and no in a
Yeah,
sense.
I mean, it's a gray area because, again, with what we deal with all the time in our hobby industry business, um, one person, you and me, this is why I love when you and me put together these videos and we're going to push forward with it, because we see two different sides and two different breeders. And, there's some things that I want to pursue that you don't like. But
Right.
then with all the genetics that we deal with, it takes one breeder to really focus and hone in on one genetic, and
Exactly.
then it makes it so popular. So it's like that whole thing of, do I need it? It's really, you got to make that choice, and hopefully it doesn't hurt as much as it can.
Right. And and there's no wrong or right answer, which is like you said, it's the point of these, videos that we're dropping. Um, and that being said, it's like a lot of determining and contributing factors play big parts in decision making. Budgeting. It's like, okay, cool. Going into your project or going into your purchase, do you have unlimited funding? Or do you have a set amount? A lot of people, what they send us in messages asking, hey, what will we get, this or that? And that's our first question. Are you looking to just produce something specifically, or are you looking to make a project out of it? If it's just a purchase whatever you like, whatever you want. But if it's a project, you got to kind of have a backbone, a game plan to it. And oftentimes, even in our situation, I would say, hey, that also means probably don't blow your whole budget on that one project. So how would you go about that if you had a finite amount of money? $5,000. The price is irrelevant, but you have 5 grand and you're looking at building this project. Do you spend that whole $5,000, max it out, get exactly what you want, or do you still kind of piece it together in a sense of getting what you want, but getting the best bang for your buck? Like, how do you weigh those options?
I would say you're in a project setting, you're never getting exactly what you want because you haven't. Obviously, you're building the project for the goal.
Right.
And that's why we build projects, whether it's released or not released, whatever the case may be. But really, before, old mindset, I would say, okay, we have $5,000 for this project. Let's go out, let's go drop, 5K on this project. And, I don't have the project if it's not here in these racks, eating, growing, and ready to go. That's
Right.
not a project. So let's go drop this 5 grand and go get some project animals. Now, after learning more and more and more over the years, honestly, we're probably gonna, 5 grand is a decent, I'll say it's a decent start into a project, because you also want to have the best odds, because if you buy a bunch of animals that are not gonna further your project after the first breedings, you're already tanking the project in yourself and your own goals, which is something that we want to stay away from. So I would say off of 5 grand, I would probably spend, I don't know, I'd probably spend like 3,500, get some stuff building. And most of that would probably be, if we're starting a project from the ground up, most of that would be good females. So really, pending the project, $3,500 out of the 5 grand budget, you're probably gonna look at maybe 2 to 3 females,
Okay.
because we want we want our females to be multi genetics. We want multiple genes in there, because the biggest focus is, if you're buying, and that's a big thing with projects too. Are you buying hatchlings? Are you buying adults? What are you doing? Are you checking the market to see what's out there? You know, and I feel that's why I wouldn't want to like throw everything that we have on the budget out there
Mhm.
right away, because I think you're
Right.
kind of jumping the gun. And 9 times out of the 10, you spend 5 grand on a project, we get four or five animals in. 2 months down the road, somebody's going to post that animal that's like, this is like two of the females genetic wise put together and a sub adult, and then we don't have the funds for that part to add that in.
Right. Right.
Um,
No, everybody has those budgeting issues. Definitely. We have those same conversations back and forth, you and I. And we joke all the time because, like, yeah, man, eating ramen this week. The budget's tight. And then it's like, wait a minute, this just dropped. I gotta go grab it. You're like, whoa, and we eating ramen? Like, yeah, it's just you still have to figure out that budgeting and that pendulum on how it works for the business. So yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you on that.
and
So what?
that's a hard topic too. The
Yeah.
budgeting
Oh
and
heck yeah.
the planning.
That's a whole nother man. We'll do a whole
Because
video
again,
on
I
that.
mean,
Yeah.
you have 5,000 into a project. If you're
Mhm.
buying hatchling stuff and growing some stuff up, okay, we're talking 2 years minimum before we're doing anything with that. And then two
Right.
years from now, if that project dropped off the face of the earth or anything like that, I mean,
And you also have small scale and big scale, and in a medium scale, you kind of want multiple irons, I guess, in the fire when it comes to a business, especially in this lane of ball pythons, where you're still working everything you want to work, but you also don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. No pun intended. You want to be able to hopefully produce and have successful seasons. We've dropped a ton of money on animals and didn't go for us. But we've been blessed in certain other areas where more often than not the other projects that we're very serious on end up going for us. So it's like you got to kind of figure it out in a sense, like not dropping that whole 5 grand into that one project, or if you do, you're comfortable with the 3, 4, 5 year wait in order to yield those eggs. So it's interesting, especially, talking to a breeder like you who, what's your max time you've kind of had to wait for one specific female? It don't have to be a crazy combo, but a female you acquired or produced, and how many years you had to wait, whether she slugged out a season, didn't lock, or whatever. What's the max time you had to wait for? He looked over at the rack.
7 years.
Holy crap! See, I love this. I love this. This is what
seven
I'm talking.
years.
This is what
So
that.
yeah. So
Yeah.
just as an example, and that's another reason why, especially with building projects, we I'd rather spend more money on less animals than less money on multiple animals, because things like this happen, and we have to think about longevity, especially on the business side. And I'm still learning the business parts. So we have a female, the fire clown that just laid for us this year. I had gotten her from a good friend in a trade. We did some swapping back and forth, and at that time, 2018, fire clown female, that was a higher list animal that I needed.
Right.
She just gave us her first clutch less than a month ago.
Wow.
She bred I think it was year 4, 5, and we skipped year 6. This was her 7th year. I believe she's 7 years old this year, and she just dropped her first clutch. And mainly is because we tried to breed her 2 years in a row, and she absorbed every time. She got to all the way up to her highest was around 29 millimeters in follicles.
Let me ask you a question that I do not know the answer to. And again, I know some people are on one side of the fence. You and I are on the same side of the fence on this now. But here it is, 7 years it took her to lay for you. And I'm asking in the utmost humblest, innocent way, like, how many of those years did you ultrasound her?
The last 4.
Okay. Okay. And the reason I ask that is because I'm a big proponent of ultrasound only in the sense of it's another tool. It's a tool.
No, it's a
It's
great tool.
right. And that's why I said we're on the same side of it at this point.
Yeah.
I've always looked at it as this is a business for us. So we want to make sure we have, we got incubators, we could go and make temporary incubators and all that stuff. And yeah, but we went out and felt like we made a average to high end purchase for incubation and made sure it fits the situation we're in. Therefore, if we're going to be breeding our females, we want to make sure that we prolong our males in the best case scenario. So that's why we went out and got the ultrasound. It's not always just to see the eggs and make sure that we just want to check the follicle size. My hands are so rough and rugged, I can't feel, I can't palpate, I can't do that stuff. So I wanted the tools of the trade, and a lot of the times, we need to hear this in videos like this, where it's like, okay, cool. Sometimes you got to spend the money on the tools. Whether it's the infrastructure, ultrasounds, whether it's the rack system, whatever rack systems you want, whether it's stainless steel, ARS, PVC, whatever. But, there shouldn't be situations where you have not done your due diligence, whether it's on an incubator, and you have, $10,000 snakes breeding, and you kind of put the eggs in a makeshift incubator that you haven't tried and tested out, again, because you can successfully build them. Same thing goes for, housing. You build a rack, maybe it's not a secure rack. Maybe your snakes are escaping. Maybe, you're not getting adequate heat. Why'd you smell? Maybe you're not getting adequate heat, or whatever it may be. You take, even if it's a normal, it doesn't matter the price of the snake, but you're putting these projects, your collection into these situations where you're kind of asking for trouble. And how do you feel you set yourself up on the business side from the beginning? Because you have nice incubator. I think we have the same incubator, I believe.
Look, honestly, we didn't. Where when
You
I
didn't?
first started, man, it was having fun. Like it
Hmm.
wasn't until a couple years into it where I was like, I would like to make this, something like I could do this full time and I would be happy with my choice. Um,
Right.
but even still now, that kind of mindset is still changing because it's like you have to prepare for a lot. It's not just,
Hmm.
hey, let's just pack up shop. I'm done. Let's go have some fun and breed some snakes. Because it sometimes it takes a long time, man. But as far as the equipment, it's just, continuing to work and continuing to produce things and save the revenue that we make. And I did my first 7 years of breeding
Hmm.
in an igloo cooler.
Oh wow.
It cost me, the most expensive part of it was the thermostat on the cooler, and I had an igloo regular drink cooler that was my incubator.
Wow. And that was successful.
100%. 100%. Dude, I wish back then we were more prone to the videos and stuff because I would have
Mhm,
loved to have videos of like how we set it up and everything. But yeah, we had an igloo, a big, I want to say it was a 72-gallon igloo cooler, one of the big ones.
mhm.
We used the drain hole. We put the wires in and put the heat tape in there and did the clips and everything inside so that we could take it all apart and it would still be a functioning cooler. And it worked out perfectly. 7 years, we easily hatched out 300 and some babies out of that successfully,
Wow.
gloriously. And all of that, and that's a big thing. Like when you guys are going through, you see the ARS racks, everything like that. If you do it the right way, it's not a need. You don't have to rush to that because that is a good big investment.
Mhm.
$3,000 on a rack, that's a lot. Um, but as long as you do your research, there are ways that you can do it. I mean, that incubator, I believe that incubator cost us $150 to do.
Wow.
And it was successful. But my biggest thing is when we move forward and continue to grow and do everything like that, not only was it hard for me to have, those coolers are big, so it was long ways. So the door opened up. So
Mhm.
I had that big incubator in the middle of the floor up against the wall, taking up a bunch of real estate. And at the point, that incubator only held 10 clutches at a time. So
That's
yeah,
still
yeah.
awesome.
And we were getting close. I started to watch my own progression. I started getting close to where I was taking one incubator box out the same day. Okay, that spot's open. Here
Mhm,
you go. We're putting one in. Then I had to start realizing, okay, what's my options? And I wanted to do a more professional look, especially with upgrading everything throughout. We
mhm,
had our phase to where I want to get away from the home built racks and everything like that. Not that they don't work, but we're at a point to where when we do videos like this, I like seeing the ARS racks in the back. It looks professional. And honestly, when you do good improvements and good additions to your equipment, it's definitely a great feeling because I don't have to worry about anything. Like it worked for years, but I don't have to worry about it failing. Our incubator, I can hold, I think the max, our incubator max is at, I think I've gotten like 44 tubs in it. If I take all the shelves out, worst case scenario. So we have, I like having that security blanket to have more room than we need. I think
right.
that's a big, big thing that people misunderstand. We're able to house you and me. You started me on that really. The percentage thing. Like
Mhm.
right now, I could every animal that we have, I could still have a spot to double that animal if I had to in empty tubs.
Right. Very, very important. So, gene wise, as we close up this video, what's a gene that kind of over the last, maybe if it's even if it's just a year or the last 2, 3 years, that kind of really interests you that you don't have? It could be
Chainsaw,
which one?
chainsaw.
Oh, he coming from my throat.
You did it. You did this to yourself. Yeah. So guys, just because this is an informational video. When you guys grow and learn and everything, you start looking at different genes and you want to try to find something new. We do have a gene that we're working. We're still figuring out. It's been years, but you find breeders like Will himself, who comes across the fantastic genetics that he's stumbled across, and he's called it the chainsaw. the chainsaw, he doesn't put too much out there because he's still working it, but it's a
Yeah,
gene
definitely.
that I definitely want to get my hands on because it has everything that we're kind of looking for in something new and what could be promising.
Damn. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean,
Man.
honestly, it's crazy because like over the last year, we've really been looking at we need to get something new or an idea of a plan to get something new in here. And what's it going to be? And we went through, Monsoon. We've done. I think it was Sapphire was another one that I was looking into heavy, and I still like those projects, but again, I keep seeing the chainsaw stuff that you guys have been working and trying to figure out, and it's like, man, I really, really like the way that that's coming together. So
Well, we're gonna see what happens. She just ovulated again, and daughter's breeding. We're gonna we're gonna see what we can produce there. See what we can make happen.
don't
Sounds
message Will about chainsaw because there's nothing there. I just, and that's
bad.
not me saying because I get first dibs. No, it's just he's hoarding it all and he's not letting it go yet. So
Yeah, just trying to be smart with it, trying to figure it out. Map it
you have to
out.
do that with projects, though. You have
Yeah,
to, especially with the new
and
genes.
that's where I was going with it. Trying to figure out that project side of it. At the same time, trying to as well kind of dumb it down to its simplest form as well. And the only I'm really excited about that because now we have a male in that project and all of that, but we have multiple ways to kind of go about that now, other than the last 2 years only really having that one way to go and figure it out.
Yeah,
So, um, yeah, that's cool. That's cool. That's cool. So we'll go ahead and wrap it up. That's all the questions we're gonna have so far on what's a purchase versus what's a project, from Tim's perspective and his experience firsthand. Again, we're gonna have part two over on Flawless Exotic Creations. So you go over there and check us out as well, and we're gonna follow up this video. But I'll let Tim go ahead, close it up, and
yes,
we'll
sir.
sign off.
And again, I appreciate all you guys tuning in to check out these videos. We are always open. Flawless, they push themselves here at More Thorough because we push ourselves. We are always open to, if you guys want to see certain content or have an interest in a certain topic or anything like that, be sure to hit us up in the comments below because it gives me and Will time to put our brains together and just come up with new stuff to sit there and just try to help you guys learn. And yeah, so we appreciate you tuning in and checking out the video. Be on the lookout for part two. That'll be
Yeah.
coming out on Flawless Exotic Creations channel. And yeah, thanks a lot, guys.
Out later.